Hey everybody, Comic Crack here. On the app on my phone, so it's one of those live streaming videos where if you're commenting, I unfortunately cannot see the comments as they're coming in. Just had a hankering to talk some books. We had a little garage convention today. Me and the two guys that I did the big comic convention, we decided to give it one last shot. Set up in our buddy's garage, drank scotch, ate hot dogs. It was great. Actually, it was just great fun. We had a few people stop by, which was really nice. But yeah, it was just a good day. Picked up a few books from a friend of mine. He had all his comics on for $1 a piece, and I found some interesting titles in there, so that was great. And I realized there's a couple things I haven't talked about before. One of them being these two books here from an amazing artist. Let's just be blunt. I love William Cardini. I've been a fan of since I discovered Vortex, when I got it on a whim from, I believe it was from Wow Cool, the website Wow Cool. I think that's where I first ordered Vortex from. And just really, really loved his style. Yeah, just got a huge kick out of it. So we had 2 new books up for sale on his website, and I couldn't resist. He was kind enough to also sign each of them and do a little sketch, which is really awesome. So this one is Sphere Fear by William Cardini. This was, let's see who did it. I think it's on the inside back cover. Sorry about this, it's always a little difficult. Yeah, it was Yeah Dude. Yeah Dude Comics, who I've talked about before on this channel. If you've followed the channel for a while, you know that I've picked up a couple of things from Yeah Dude. So really, really nice little book. Yeah. And the other one was this. Tales from the Hyperverse, William Cardini, from Retrofit and Big Planet, and Retrofit again, a name that I've talked about here on this channel in the past. So the Hyperverse is where the Mizard and Vortex kind of take place. So from what I understand, and Will, if you are watching, forgive me if I get some of this information wrong, I believe these stories that are in here were stuff that appeared online, I believe. I'm just looking on the inside front cover to see if it says. No, it doesn't, but I believe this is stuff that appeared online, and I think this first page was also available as a print, because I do remember seeing this page before. So you get a good look at his style. There's the lists of the stories contained in here. There's a couple of stories that are colored by Josh Burgraff. Talked about him before on this channel as well. With I'm blanking on the name. Was it Future Shock? I believe was the anthology, sci-fi anthology that he appeared in, and I've got some of his comics too. Anyway, so the kind of like one-off short little stories starring the Mizard and people like the Floating Crystal Witch. And as you can see, you know, you get a great idea of exactly why this stuff appeals. Here's a story that's colored by Josh Burgraff right here on this side. Yeah, the style just really pops. I love the use of color, especially things like that, like printed over top of other images. I think is a really cool looking effect, like that panel there, for example. Amazing stuff. If you don't know Will, follow him on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter, and he's a really, really nice guy. And I mean, again, just take a look at this comic. It's, oh, excuse me, don't want this to freeze up on me. Fantastic work. I'll try to remember when I do get to a computer to post links in this video to his website and stuff where you can order all this work. But there you go. So I believe it was in the back on this one. Yeah, here we go. Another little sketch and signed. Love it. Love it. Love it. What does it say? Hold heat, blah, blah, oh, there you go, look at that, hypercastle.com. I don't need to. Oh, here we go. So, some of these comics were previously printed in modified forms in Smoke Signal number 5, Secret Prison number 2 and 4, Math Fiction, Future Shock, and Rock Salt 11 and 16. So there you go. So some of this was reprinted from other spots, as well as online. There you go, William Cardini. Get it. While I've been going through comics and kind of reorganizing the shelves, you can see kind of relabeling boxes, sorting now that I've got a bit of space to work with, seeing as there's a chunk of books that are leaving. Rediscovered the Blue Comet comic company that I've got a handful of books. Part of going to the big convention, which I believe I talked about then, was the discovery or the reminder again that, hey, there's a Winnipeg Comic Addicts Facebook page. You really should check it out. A lot of guys are on there. I think their membership is up to like almost 500 people in that little group. There's auctions and stuff that happen. There's just heads up about events going on, and, you know, a bunch of like-minded people. Where was I going with that thread? I don't remember where I was going with that thread. But I looked through the comics, found this Blue Comet again, and just rediscovered, like, holy crap, the Craig A. Storman, I believe, Stormon was his name. He did a couple of small press stuff. I see, when I looked at his listing on Comic Vine, I see that even stuff like Turtle Soup was mentioned. He had an appearance in that. But a lot of stuff like Flare Comics, and of course Blue Comet was kind of his baby to some degree. He didn't do the art in all the comics. Life Brigade, I believe, was kind of his baby, and he did some stuff for the rest, like did some covers, did some inking, that sort of thing. For example, this cover, I believe, was just inked by him, because his name does appear on the front, or maybe they collaborated on it. Anyway, they've all got an incredible look to them. This cover particularly is pretty fantastic. So, rediscovering these comics, looked up online to see exactly how many titles Blue Comet had before it folded, a handful of them, and did some digging online, and also posted on the Winnipeg Comic Addicts website or page, just to see if anybody was aware and maybe had people had stuff for trade. We'll have it quick. I've got 2 copies of this one there. Here we go. Here's Life Brigade. I'll continue that story in a moment. We'll look at a couple of these covers. Like that art, I love it. And it's funny, especially now with the kind of popularity of people like Benjamin Marra. You can see a lot of influence in some of these comics on the kind of thing that he does. To me, anyway, I can see it. I mean, it's not that they're exactly the same style. It's just there's something about the aesthetic of these kind of micro publishers that I think is pretty reminiscent of guys like Benjamin Marra. So this is Rough Raiders. They're cool. Cover there, and then finally Varmints. I'm pretty sure I've shown these off before. These were all found kind of in various places for next to nothing. And then here's the Varmints special issue. The interiors are just as exciting. It's all black and white interiors, but they're still pretty mind-blowing. So anyway, I posted on the Addicts Facebook just to see if anybody had the books. And then I figured, you know, there's a couple places in the States they had, mycomicshop.com had quite a few of them listed for about anywhere from between like $1.25 and $2 an issue, which is next to nothing. The problem, of course, for us up here in Canada is getting that stuff shipped, even if it was only 5 or 6 comics. It can be fairly pricey just to get stuff shipped. So I decided to go the local route, and Comic World, which is a company that's been around here forever, he still has a warehouse set up. Doug Sulipa, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. So he's got a website presence and a pretty extensive list of comics. So digging through there, he had pretty much every other Blue Comet title. So I sent a message to him, see if I can get a quote from him. I'm sure they're all going to be relatively cheap, and then this way I don't have to worry about shipping. Which brings me to today, looking through some of my price guides. And again, it's always nice to get a little bit of... I do enjoy seeing Winnipeg represented in some of these things. So this is Comic Book Price Guide, the Overstreet Guide, number 8. This is 1978/1979. And what do we have in here? Man, it's so easy doing all this with one hand. Of course, I didn't mark the page. So here we go. Oh, well, here's something. If Damien, Sleepy Reader, if you're watching, there you go. The First Kingdom graphic novel. Even using the words graphic novel, Damien. That was part of our conversations at the time. The classic what is the first graphic novel, and what was called a graphic novel, and when was it called a graphic novel? So here's a price guide from 1978, 1979, assuming this was published early 1979. Let me flip through here. Sorry about this. And there we go. There it is. So nice to see a full page ad for Doug Sulipa's Comic World, 116-388 Donald Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And that the location on Donald Street is the one that I remember from when I was a kid. Obviously, I wasn't there in 1978, 1979, being 5 and 6 years old at the time. But in the 80s, when I did discover downtown, when we were allowed to take the bus on our own to go and explore downtown Winnipeg, I have such pristine recollections of this comic shop. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I remember the counter. I remember digging through the back issue bins. I remember what I found there. I mean, I was a big Kiss fan back in those days. I remember finding, I think, an issue of Cream magazine with Kiss. I'm sure I found a whole bunch of other goodies. But it was just kind of, Comic World became part of the circuit when I went downtown, you know. So that's cool. So that was a nice little trip. And again, looking through these price guides is just so much fun. I had a look for, just out of curiosity, Daredevil issue number 1. And at this time, I think Daredevil was only at about 150, I think was the last number that was listed in the book. There we go, Daredevil issue number 1 in mint condition, $45. Yeah, so it's cool, and there's actually Trina Robbins has a little one-page write-up in here as well. I haven't read it yet. And somebody on the Facebook group was asking if Doug did a write-up on kind of the comic book marketplace in this one, so I'll have to look through, because I've got a few more price guides over there and some older ones over here too. I'll have to look through some of those older ones just to see if he did do any writing for the price guides that I have in my collection. just to read what he has to say. So I'm looking forward to kind of hearing back from him. I'm going to see, I don't know if he allows people to come to the warehouse, pardon me, to pick up the books. He's in Steinbach, which is relatively close, maybe. I mean, everything seems to be about a half an hour away from everything here in Manitoba or in Winnipeg and the surrounding areas, but I think Steinbach might be about a 45-minute drive, to be fair. I'm going to see if he's up for having somebody come and pick them up, if that's even allowed to happen. I'd love to get a look at the warehouse and just talk to him face to face, because I know sometimes he tries to coordinate pickups. I know he knows some people at Thirsty's Flea Market, which is right by me, so I think he might send in a shipment of books to somebody at Thirsty's and then people just show up to pick them up. Might even be Wally, actually, the guy who does the mini convention that I do. But I really hope he's up for a visitor. You know, just guys like this who have been around for so long, it would be great to pick his brain a little bit and what it was like back then, and having these ads in and how involved he was. As I showed off in a video before, seeing Styx Comics advertisements. They were kind of a big distributor in Canada and kind of located here in Winnipeg, which is always very cool to get a little bit of local flavor for stuff. Slide that back over there. So then, as I said, part of our little garage convention, Kaylee was selling a bunch of his books for about $1 a piece. Well, not about $1 a piece. 90% of his stuff was $1 a piece. So I had a little dig through and I found some things. Surprised to find these in his collection. I didn't think he was a fan of this stuff. He only had 4 issues, but when I looked at the price, I was pretty sure it was a printing that I didn't have. But it was one of those things that was so cheap and they're in such a nice condition that even if they were doubles, I decided to take a chance. I can always use them as some trade bait or, you know, something like that when I'm trying to trade undergrounds. 17th printing, and none of them I do have, so none of them are doubles. So this is issue number 2 of Freak Brothers. Issue number 3 here, again with the $3.25 price tag, and that's the 12th printing. Issue number 4, and again, they're all in really nice shape. He's kind of anal like I am when it comes to the books. Reads them very carefully and then really takes care of his stuff. 9th printing. And finally, for Freak Brothers, issue number 7. Again, a $3.25 price tag. And as I said in the video where we looked at undergrounds and the best way to tell different printings, again, that's a surefire way to find out, maybe not be able to pinpoint exactly which printing it is, but that's always a good thing to look out for. The price, he had this 4-issue miniseries, Ricardo Delgado, Hieroglyph, which I've heard plenty about, I think from Johnny Zero, more than likely from Rez as well. So he had all 4 issues of that I could not resist. Issue number 1 and 2, with some stellar covers, you know, very European-looking artwork for sure. Issue number 3, and it's Dark Horse Maverick, which I'm not familiar with. They must have had a little side label. Maybe somebody watching can fill in the details. Great cover there. And finally, issue number 4 of Hieroglyph. Great stuff. I had to flip through the first issue, and the interiors are just as fantastic as the covers. The next stack is stuff that he recommended to me. Something called The Adventures of Luther Arkwright. Another Dark Horse series. This first one, there was two separate stacks of them. This one is a 9-issue series. And again, the covers really caught my eye, and when I flipped through one of the books, the interior art is fantastic as well. And he and I, when it comes to indie stuff, there is quite a bit of crossover as far as books that we do enjoy. So if he says, hey, you should really check it out, it's a fantastic story, one of my favorites, I'm going to take that to the bank for sure. So I'm really looking forward to reading these. I was going to start reading them tonight, actually. Maybe try to read the first couple of issues. Issue number 3. Again, there's that kind of 80s art style on the front there. Issue number 4, Swashbuckler. Issue number 5, Nuns with Whips. And somebody shooting up right there. That's got T. Fuller written all over it. That's got Comic Crack written all over that cover. Again, just to say it out loud in case there's viewers now, if you are commenting, I'm sorry I can't see them when I use this app on my phone. I do appreciate you trying to chat if you are there, but I am incapable of responding. Number 7, number 8, and finally number 9. So this next, the second story, I think in the same kind of universe, yes, The Legacy of Luther Arkwright. He was missing 2 issues of it, but either way, still got a good chunk of them. Chapter 1. Chapter 2. So yeah, Brian Talbot. And it's funny, his name just appeared in one of the magazines I bought at the convention. I ran across his name. I think it might have been in Comics Journal. There was some drawings by him. Chapter 3. Yeah, so I mean, if anybody knows about this series, I'd be curious to hear thoughts on it. It seems like a Travis, or a Sleepy Reader, or a Rez, or a Johnny Zero, or, you know, my usual gang that watches my videos. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear people's opinions on this. What did you think? How does it sit in your memory as far as a series that you've read? And then finally, issue number 9. Now, I believe it only went 9 issues. It might have been more, but either way, those are the only issues that I have. So I'm going to keep my eyes open for the rest. Good books last night, just to kind of finish off. I started reading this beast of a book that I got from Mr. Johnny Zero, the Puma Blues, the complete saga in 1 volume. Introduction by David Sim. David Sim published it at the time as well. The introduction by David Sim is pretty disjointed, for me anyway. Yeah, I'm about 125 pages into it, and I'm really digging it quite a bit. Again, I guess we're on that. I think this was this late 80s? Do I remember it saying? I want to say 89, but now I'm not so sure that that's right. Might have been even mid-80s. What does it say? Anything there? No. It just says when this book was published in 2015. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. But for some reason, I want to say 89. I may be way off on that. Anyway. Really great so far. Just kind of still building the world. Yeah, it takes place in kind of like a future. Apparently, just from reading the introduction, it gets into even heavier kind of ecological messages, you know, and subtext. So far, this character has kind of discovered coming to terms with his father's death and looking at old tapes that his father had made. It's a presidential campaign. We go back to this president coming to a section of the city, I believe Brooklyn, and a big terrorist type of attack happens that blows up Brooklyn. There's shades of Trump in some of this, just with kind of the rhetoric. that these candidates are talking about, some of the things that they're saying, could work equally well now. But that art style, again, I really do enjoy it. It's really got its own voice, and it's a great read so far. And we just keep seeing this flying manta ray everywhere. And again, I think it was said in, yeah, here we go. This chapter was really great because it was just this puma hunting and all these various animals, and all the sound effects were the dialogue for the entire issue. I'm assuming that this would have been one issue, and really nicely done. I thought really clever. Yeah, before we get back into some human interaction. Yeah, so Jay-Z, if you are watching, thank you so much for that. Finally getting around to reading it. I know it's been a while since you've sent it, but I really do appreciate it. It's a really, really great book. Again, I'm not surprised that I enjoy it. Jay-Z is one of those guys that, when it comes to reading, we do have a lot in common as far as that goes in our adventurous nature, digging into the cheapo bins. Anyway, that's it. I was going to post some pictures of these books and ask people about them on Twitter, but I figured, what the hell. Let's talk books. Thanks very much for joining me. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you for watching in the future. And we'll talk to you.